Welcome. There are a bunch of seats up front, too. Don't be shy. Plenty of seats up front. Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Welcome to the Aaron Rosen Lecture. I'm Ramona Denby Brunson. I serve in the role of president of the SSWR board and serve in the role of dean and professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We are so pleased to see such a wonderful crowd, such a wonderful turnout. Thank you all for joining us. I just wanted to a few brief remarks, and I'm going to turn over to my colleague, but we wanted to let you know, as many of you already know, that this is a special highlight for SSWR each year, the Aaron Rosen Lecture. We consider this one of our favorite portions of the program because of the body of work, and Dean Dorian Traub will share a little bit more about the background and the history of this particular lecture, but our distinguished speaker this year is especially aligned with the theme of the conference and the work that's embodied in this lecture. And so we are so happy that you'll be here to be able to share in this wisdom. We will, in terms of the program, I want to bring Dean Dorian Traub to the stage with me. She is the dean of the George Warren Brown School of Social Work at Washington University. She'll talk a little bit more about our speaker. Our speaker has been generous to say that he will take questions towards the end of the talk. And so thank you so much. I invite Dean Dorian Traub to join me.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. What a great-looking crowd. So many good friends in the audience here. So I'm Dorian Traub. I am, as was said, the dean of the Brown School. It's my honor to get to serve in that capacity. And I want to thank you all for joining us this morning for the Aaron Rosen Lecture. For those that didn't have the honor of working alongside Professor Rosen, I want to start by taking a moment to acknowledge the legacy that this lecture celebrates. In the mid-1960s, Aaron Rosen joined the faculty at the Brown School, primarily to teach in our doctoral program. And through his career, he was the leader of doctoral education and was a pivotal figure in the movement to strengthen the empirical foundation of social work. And in 2002, the Society for Social Work and Research, along with the Brown School, established this lecture to honor Dr. Rosen's lifetime achievement. If you are interested in more information about the history of this lecture and the history of the Brown School, we do have some books at our table that we would welcome you to pick up, along with some gooey butter cake. But that, if you're a history buff, it's a good read. Lectures are selected due to their extraordinary scholarship and contributions to the advancement of our field, with particular focus on the integration of research into social work practice. And it's hard to imagine a more fitting candidate to deliver the 2025 lecture than Professor Leo Cabassa. As co-director of the Center for Mental Health Services Research at the Brown School, Leo's research centers on examining physical and mental health inequities in historically marginalized racial and ethnic populations with serious mental illness. His research includes both qualitative and quantitative methods, always with a focus on building a nuanced understanding of how physical health and mental health are integrated and how research findings can be implemented with real-world impact. For his excellence in scholarship, he has been named a fellow of both the Society for Social Work and Research and the American Academy of Social Work and Social Welfare. Leo's work is making life-saving and life-improving contributions in 3 areas: improving depression literacy and reducing stigma towards mental illness in the Latino community, reducing physical health inequities in racial, ethnic, minoritized, and historically marginalized communities with serious mental illness, and improving the health and well-being of young adults experiencing first episode psychosis. He's also engaging in some really cutting-edge research on the use of psychedelic-assisted therapies that I'm so excited. I hope you're going to cover that, a little bit of that today. No, a little bit, okay. Let me just throw a wrench in your speech there, Leo. This work is so incredibly important. And every time I hear him speak, I learn something new. So I'm excited for the lessons he will offer us today. So please join me in welcoming Leo Cabassa to the stage. And his talk today is entitled Doing Social Work Science, Lessons from a Health Equity Scholar. Congratulations to you, Leo, and thank you for doing us so proud as a profession.
All right. Muy buenos días. Good morning. It is great to be here. It is such an honor to do this. I am honored to have received this award, and I would like to thank Dean Dorian, the Aaron Rosen Committee, and SWR leadership for this incredible honor. To tell you the truth, when I come to SWR, this is one of the few things that I actually attend, and I love coming to this lecture because it always teaches us about our science, our work, and sort of the state of where we're at in this one. I'm also deeply honored to join all these team colleagues that have been awarded and done these lectures in 2002. So I'm super excited to have this opportunity. So first of all, I shouldn't be here. I should be here right now. I'm in the middle of my one-year sabbatical, and it's the first time that I've ever taken a sabbatical in my 20-something career, so I was not gonna come to SWR this year. So I was very excited when I got this award, but then I'm like, damn it. I could be walking in my favorite beach in Puerto Rico every morning, listening to podcasts, enjoying that beautiful weather. But however, no joking aside, actually this came at a great time. Because over the past 6 months during a sabbatical, one of the things that you do is you get a chance to reflect on what you've done and where you're going, and to readjust sort of your priorities, both professionally and personally. So when I got the news of this lecture, I was thinking, so what would I talk about? Given that I'm in this reflective, very relaxed state, not have any stresses for this year, ignoring all my work emails, which has been great. But it gave me a chance to think about, okay, if I have this opportunity, what would I say? And today I want to share some lessons that our team has done over the past 20 years doing the work that we do as a health equity scholar. And I hope that this helps us move the conversation forward about what is the science of social work. The other thing that gave me an opportunity was to actually reconnect with the work of Aaron Rosen. I had a great opportunity that Enola sent me a bunch of papers from Aaron and got a chance to reconnect with that work and to see that that work is still super viable today. And I want to say something particularly, the element of my talk today is to really think about how we're blending our values as a profession with scientific rigor. And that space in between is what I want to talk about today. And this quote, there'll be many quotes in this talk, so prepare yourselves. Some in English, some in Spanish. But Aaron had this mandate to our profession. He says, as a member of the social work profession, we are committed to ensuring that services are guided by our professional values, but also founded on the best available scientific validated evidence and knowledge. And that's what I want to talk about today, how our team has tried to put these two things together. And I see try because this is a lifelong journey of how we bring our values with our science and how that informs where we're going. And this is a big conversation in our field that actually started with John Breck, in my opinion, about what is social work science. And John did this wonderful paper. I hope everyone has read this paper about the domains, the characteristics, the principles of what is the science of social work. And I might say John was one of the coolest professors I've ever met. I met him when I was a postdoc at the University of Southern California, and he was a deep thinker about this type of question. And he's not the only one. There's been an extremely robust dialogue in our profession about the science of social work, what it is, what are the values, what are domains. And I don't want to repeat that. What I want to do today is actually how do we put those ideas into action in the work that we do day and day. And particularly from the vantage point of a health equity scholar that comes from Puerto Rico. And that's what I want to sort of highlight today. So just to ground our conversation today, social work science is about understanding and action. Social work is an applied science that focuses on promoting and producing changes at all levels. We're interested in reducing suffering and disease, but we're also interested in increasing inclusion, empowerment, equity, and well-being. The way that I see social work science is social work scientists are connectors of knowledge with action. And that's what we need to continue to do. And that's a hard charge for our profession. Knowledge and action usually have lots of different conflicts in between. So as social work scientists, we're bringing knowledge and connected with the action to help our communities. But in social work, we also value lots of different things. We revel in complexity. We study the complex, chaotic, beautiful, delicious interactions between individuals, families, communities, and their environments. Our science is comfortable of blending models and perspective from different disciplines. In fact, we live in those boundaries between disciplines. We use and apply different methods for our science. We also value pluralism, quantitative, qualitative, knowledge from science, knowledge from the community, and wisdom. That's also a part of the pluralism. And some of the work that we are doing, we're really trying to blend that. And lastly, actually directed to the content of this, or the theme of the conference is collaboration. Social work is a science, it's a team science, collaboration with other disciplines, collaborations with other scientists, but most important, collaborations and partnership with the people that we serve, with the families, the communities that we serve. So in thinking about where I've been and how we're going, there's been several things that have shaped our approach to science. When I say our approach is, I am here as part of a larger team, and some of them are here in the audience. All of the work that I'm presenting is not my work. It's actually the work of our entire team that have put this together. But there's been several lessons that have shaped sort of what I've done. The first one is something that I learned at GWB, or George Warren Brown School, or now known as the Brown School, although we're reclaiming the GWB identity as a school of social work. But one thing that I learned very early, and actually from Enola Proctor, is that effectiveness is not enough. We cannot just test interventions and see if they work in some settings and other, for some populations and other. We actually need to think forward and think about how we're going to use that evidence in the community. So effectiveness is usually not enough for the work that we do. The other component has to do with how we go about doing our science. I was very lucky in my postdoc to be part of this wonderful study conducted at UCLA, led by Ken Wells and Jeannie Miranda, the Community Partners in Care study. That was actually a CBPR randomized controlled trial testing a CBPR approach versus a technical assistant approach for delivering depression care in minoritized communities, particularly in Black and Latino communities. And they tested whether a CBPR process was better than technical assistant. And it was all participatory. Even the program officers were at the table with community members making decisions about the design and the execution of this large effectiveness trial. And that really taught me that we needed to think about how we go doing our science as an important element. Third, the idea of mixed methods. We need mixed methods, for sure. The complexities that we study actually require that we look at quantitative and qualitative data from experts, data from the community, and bring it all together. And that delicious mix of things is what makes our science exciting about what we do. And then lastly, social work is a team sport. We need to collaborate with people. We compete with each other as well. So it's also important. I love sports, so it helps me sort of ground the work that we do. So let me tell you about the lessons that I want to impart today with this lecture. The first one is actually that our research questions and methods are shaped by who we are and where we come from. And I told you there's going to be a lot of quotes here. So these are wonderful quotes that I use in my first year class for the theory course in the doctoral program, that scientific progress cannot be divorced from the social context in which it takes place. This is something we don't talk much about in our profession. We have few spaces to actually reflect upon what influences our research questions. Where do they come from? What's our passion for the studies that we do? And that every study and every research question that we have has a backstory. It comes from somewhere. And that somewhere is who we are and our different identities. My identity actually has come in the different places that I've been. I've been very lucky to have a wife that lets me travel and go together. So we started in Puerto Rico, went to San Luis, went to LA, went to New York, got back to San Luis. We're getting back to Puerto Rico at some point. We don't get deported, but that's a whole other story. But as someone that has lived most of his life in between worlds, it's always really important to ground what I do to my background, to my Puerto Rican background. And that to me has been really, really important for our culture and our history. Our science should be informed by who we are, our different roles, our different identities. I'm a scientist, I'm a social worker, I'm a professor, but I'm also a dad, I'm a brother, I'm a husband, and all of those identities play into my work. From Puerto Rico, we are deeply aware of our colonial status. We've been a colony of the United States since 1898. And that means that we have a foot in the US and a foot in Latin America and the Caribbean, which makes it really interesting. That's why we have good music. But there's something that I really cherish as I think about that identity. And I actually took this idea from a great documentary that Rosy Perez did many years ago called Si Yo Soy Boricua, Pa Que Tu Lo Sepas, which is the idea that as a Puerto Rican personally, I have valued Uncle Sam very much. They have provided me a place to live, a place to work, a place to thrive, for my family to be safe. But at the end of the day, my first love is my motherland, my madre patria. That's the most important thing. I'm from Borinquen, and that's sort of where my heart is always at. And that history connects me with the work that I do. But we're deeply aware as Puerto Ricans of our second-class citizenship. We are citizens by birth, but we don't have the same rights that all citizens have. And we're deeply aware of the mechanisms of colonization and racism. I'm not gonna talk about what you see here, but I'm gonna talk about that as Puerto Ricans, we're always pushing back. We're always pushing back against that history. In an era where our science and our expertise and our evidence base is being questioned and attacked, I believe one way that we can address that is by talking about and humanizing our science. Where does it come from? Why do we study what we do? And to tell that story of where we're at. We need to tell those stories, to be transparent about what motivates us to study and to bring and reclaim the humanity of the colonizers of our people. But as Puerto Rican, I know of no better approach that we're resilient people. No matter what hurricane, what adversity comes to our island, we come together, we rebuild, we keep moving forward. I know of no other world in the world where when you land in San Juan, people clap. People clap, not because they're safe, because they landed in the land of enchantment, in La Isla del Encanto. And that's the prideful of what we have. I'm gonna read you this particular quote that is very telling for that resiliency. Nosotros estamos luchando desde el día uno de nuestra existencia. We've been fighting from day one of our existence. Somos la definición de corazón y de resistencia. We're the definition of heart and resistance. Aquí seguimos. We're here. We will always be here. Y para aquellos que olviden quiénes somos, for those who forget who we are, tranquilo, chillax, relax. With pride, we will always remind you who we are. This is from Benito Antonio Martinez. Anyone know who Benito Antonio Martinez is? Who? That's Bad Bunny. That's Bad Bunny. And for those of you who don't know Bad Bunny, you've been hiding under a rock. This is the biggest star, bigger than Taylor Swift. My daughter's gonna kill me about that. But he's reclaiming our history, and it shows how our people, no matter what we do, no matter where we are, we're always have Puerto Rico in our blood and our history, and our complex history. But the work that I do over the past decades has been shaped by two questions. Why do people with serious mental illness, people with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, why do they die earlier than the rest of the population? And what is being done to address that inequity? And my motivation to address those questions are both scientific in nature, but also deeply personal. These diseases are very familiar to me. From my mom's side, we have experienced the ravages and the cruelties of cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's disease, dementia, suicide, and psychosis. From my dad's side, the same story. So these are things that are really personal to me. I have seen the issues that happen and how it destroys family, but there's also hope. These personal experiences have shaped and informed who, why, and what I study. It shapes my professional and personal journey. And as a Puerto Rican social worker, I rely on my family's experiences to ground my work and to never forget where I come from and who my work represents. And that's my North Star in everything that I do. All right. Our second lesson today is actually directly linked to the theme of this story, of this conference. Collaborations and partnerships are critical to address health inequities. And in the area of work that we do, there's been this great report published now in 2010 that indicates there are multiple strategies to pursue in addressing the morbidity and mortality among people with serious mental illness. But for any of these strategies to be successful, our principal partnership must be with the people that we serve. That sounds great, but how do we put that into action using rigorous science? And that's where some of our work have contributed to this area. We developed the Collaborative Intervention Planning Framework, which is a framework that uses science to adapt interventions with the community and bringing community partners and researchers together through a process that helps adapt those interventions. That framework comes with CBPR principles. We use participatory processes. We value different sources of knowledge, from clinicians to researchers to lived experience in the community. And then we use a strength-based approach to put those principles into action using intervention mapping, which is a step-by-step process of developing intervention. And one of the things that I'm most proud of our work is that this particular framework is now being replicated and used in other studies. And some of the people who are using this are in the room, Elizabeth Science in particular, where they're using this particular process to adapt interventions, to make them more relevant to our world, and to use that collaboration to fuel our science. And we need to bring those two things together, the collaborations with strong scientific methods, and that it can be replicated by other teams. Our third lesson today is to move from understanding to interventions. And I said I was going to quote here a good colleague at the Brown School. One of my favorite classes to teach at the Brown School, I've been very privileged to do this, is the first-year doctoral level theory class, in which we talk to a lot of scientists about how they use theory, but the conversations always end into how they move their theories into action and how it informs the work that they do. And Michael Sheridan wrote a wonderful paper, actually it's part of a speech, if I'm not mistaken, titled Asking Questions Well, the Role of Theory in Applied Social Sciences. And that's one of the first papers that we read in that class. And Michael laid out this fundamental challenge to the social work profession that is super relevant today, and we continue to struggle with this, that the challenge in the applied social sciences is not simply to find out what is true. It's actually to find out what is both true and useful. Remember, we're connectors of knowledge to action. So how do we bring that knowledge to the action to improve the lives of the people that we serve? And this particular quote creates a lot of discussions in our class, and actually it's a wonderful way of grounding the work that we do from theory to methods, but thinking about how useful our science actually is. In the work that we do, we actually incorporate it in multiple ways. We use science in multiple approaches to address equity. In everything that we do, we incorporate culture. We want to make things useful. That means making it culturally relevant to the populations that we serve. We want to engage minoritized communities in our studies from the very beginning. It's okay to do studies only on Latinos. It's okay to do studies only on Black or indigenous people. We need that science. We need that evidence. We want to expand the type of providers who can deliver our interventions. In our work, we use a lot of peer specialists, people with lived experiences to deliver the interventions. Expands the settings where these interventions are being done. And then, importantly, integrating implementation science. Remember, effectiveness is not enough. We need to think about how to implement what we're doing in the real world, in routine practice settings, and the challenges that comes in, and develop evidence for where it's going to land. So that usefulness has been something that we have tried to do in the work that we do. And a good story for this has been the work that we did for the peer-led healthy lifestyle program in supportive housing, which actually started as a photo voice project. where we went to supported housing agencies and talked to people about what would they like, what would they want out of a health intervention, engage them in photographs, engage them in stories, in community, and to really think about what type of interventions will work here. What would you want to do to improve the physical health? And use that methodology to bring that component. And the lessons that we learned were extremely critical for this usefulness of our work. First, people wanted a format of an intervention that was peer-based. Don't bring a professional, don't bring a social worker to tell me how to eat better, how to exercise. Bring me someone that actually has lived with schizophrenia, that has coped with obesity, and that's the person that should be teaching me how to do this better. They wanted the content on weight loss and physical activity like everyone else. We're all struggling with our obesity, believe me, and trying to address that. And then the methods is, don't come here and lecture me about how to eat better and exercise. Teach me experiential learning skills. Teach me skills acquisition, how to cook for one person without wasting food, how to exercise in a neighborhood where you might get shot outside, how to do that in the winter when you're Puerto Rican and you do not want to get out of your apartment, and how do you exercise with that. So those were extremely important lessons that came from the community to inform what type of intervention we can do in supportive housing. And we ended up adapting the diabetes prevention program, the group lifestyle balance intervention. We adapted it in multiple ways for trained peer specialists. And then we moved that intervention to a hybrid one trial, where we examine both the effectiveness of the intervention, but also what happens when you intervene in supportive housing agency. How does our study shift the context of practice while we're there, and the policies that happen as you're doing a study. So we had this wonderful effectiveness trial led by Anna Stefancic and myself. We did this in 3 supportive housing agencies, 2 in Philadelphia, 1 in New York City. This is the largest study I've ever done. It's 314 people, followed for 18 months. 82% of our participants from racial and ethnic minoritized community, mostly Black. These are all people with serious mental illness that are recovering from their serious mental illness, they're overweight or obese, and they're living in supportive housing. This is a really tough population to engage, and we retain 80% of the individuals at 18 months. And then we have very clear outcomes. We wanted to see if our intervention achieved clinically significant weight loss, not statistically significant, clinically significant. Do they lose 5% of their weight loss at 12 or 18 months? And then we looked at other health indicators. This was a wonderful study, had a lot of ups and downs. We learned a lot. We drove from New York to Philadelphia almost on a monthly basis. And it was the experience of my lifetime in doing this study. And we published it. And we had no findings. Compared to usual care, our intervention was like, it's the same thing. So after many, many nights of crying, but remembering something that this is a hybrid one trial. We have a bunch of other data to examine why. Why did we have this no finding? Is it something that we did? Is it something that the intervention failed? Is it something in the context? So we were able to ask that question. Remember, we value complexity as social work. So that complexity, we had data to examine that and to jump in. And I'm glad this is a no finding, because it helped us ask those next questions, and actually we learned something even better examining this. The first thing is that, no, our intervention did not suck. Okay? Our intervention, compared to other interventions out there for healthy lifestyle, actually was pretty sane. And remember, this is an intervention being delivered in supportive housing by peer specialists. The interventions you're seeing here are by professionals, by nurses, by doctors, by physical therapists. So our intervention did pretty well. Something else is going on here. And since we did a hybrid one study, we were able to look more deeply at to what happened. When I conceptualized this study, I had read a lot about interventions, and actually I had read a lot about failed interventions, now that I think about it. And one of the things that I learned was that we needed to really pay attention of how the intervention enters an organization and how, as we're intervening, we may be changing the organization. We may be shifting the way they do things by our bigger presence of studying this, even if we try to control everything, which is almost impossible. So we were able to then look at different data to examine what implementation factors may have impacted our results. And one result that we had is that the intervention worked in one setting over the other two, and it worked really well in one setting. So it helped us in why. Why did it work there? And in a paper that Daniela Tuda, one of our doctoral students, led, using the matrix multi-case study methodology, it's a mixed method approach developed by Bo Kim, we examined how implementation factors contributed to this approach. We looked at fidelity, we looked at satisfaction with the intervention and usual care, and we also had qualitative data from the leaders of the organization to talk about what was the context of practice before we started and what was the context of practice after we completed the intervention. Wonderful methodology. And we found some very important things. One, the fidelity. Like, we deliver this intervention to the best of our ability. 92, 91, 95% of fidelity. And we had a huge methodology on how we addressed that, and I'm happy to talk about that in the Q&A. In satisfaction, our intervention seemed to be a little bit better than usual care in terms of people's views of the satisfaction. But where the story gets really interesting is what happened in the integration of healthcare. We did this during the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Our control group was usual care. We're talking about interventions of health. We're talking about organizations that want to integrate physical health into their operations, and we helped them with that. So in two sites, they integrated lots of services. Usual care got better and integrated all of these components. And the place where our intervention worked well was the one agency that didn't integrate that well. And actually, usual care didn't change that much. So this let us understand that our intervention has a relative advantage over usual care in certain places. And our intervention seems to work well when in that place they don't have these types of services. So that let us understand that our intervention matters, and it's the context actually that also matters in how intervention works. And we wouldn't have done any of the study if we wouldn't have a null finding to do that. So it's an important component of bringing that complexity, using different methodologies, and keep asking questions to make sure that those questions and those results are useful for the people that we're serving. And my last lesson for today actually comes from my previous mentor, Luis Sayas, and it's a quote that I had seen it many times, and I didn't catch it until I wrote a book several years ago. The data should not be allowed to eclipse the human. I love this picture. Data and stories are critical to ground our science in the realities of the people that we serve, to tell our story of how we go about doing our work. In the words of Luis Sayas, data cannot be allowed to eclipse the human. Data and stories are both valuable. They reflect different aspects of different phases of a phenomenon, the attached versus the detached. And it's by combining them that we get a better sense of how these interventions work and how to bring. And in the era of big data, we cannot forget the humanity behind those data and the stories that come out. And to me, that's a really important aspect of the work that we do. And I'll give you one last example of this. In almost every study that we've done, we always start with qualitative work. We want to go into these communities, understand what's happening, listen to the people on the ground, and use that to shape the work that we do. This is a quote that I've used many times, and it's an administrator, after many hours of talking to this person, she finally said this about our Latino patients. Our patients, partly because of their illnesses, of their cultural and language issues, because the system is not well organized, they often get lost in our system. And we're talking about people with serious mental illness who are Latino and trying to navigate from mental health services to primary care. The patient gets overwhelmed, you're not feeling well, we may have symptoms of psychosis, you don't speak the language, you're trying to figure out where to go. It can get overwhelming, and patients get frustrated and they don't get the care that they need. And not getting the care that they need, meaning these people die early, much earlier than the rest of us, 20 years earlier. So this quote enabled us to see, okay, how do we address this problem? How do we help someone navigate that maze and use an intervention to address that? So we adapted an intervention from the Black community, actually. Intervention that was developed in Atlanta, Georgia, for Black patients navigating between mental health services and primary care, and we adapted to Latinos in Washington Heights, mostly Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans. And we used a healthcare manager. The intervention was actually for nurses, registered nurses. We actually have social workers. And this is what we do. We help connect, we monitor, we coordinate between providers, we coach and connect and coordinate the care that people are providing. We're actually not providing any particular health intervention. We're actually helping someone navigate that maze and get the care that they need. But we then embedded cultural relevance into this. We paid close attention to the language of our intervention, to the literacy level in which we deliver the materials, lots of patient education that had Latino flavors, lots of soap operas and fotonovelas for all of this work. But then we went deeper, and we began to ask systematically of every client that we serve in this intervention about their cultural factors. What do you fear about going into the healthcare system? What are your hopes about your diabetes? What have you tried and what has failed? What do you know what causes each of your illnesses? Are people with chronic illnesses and serious mental illness? And we wanted to empower clients to be their own advocates, to advocate for their own care, and to target stigma and attitudes in the Latin American community that create barriers in the care that we do. So we tested this in a very small trial, a 12-month pre and post one group intervention. We didn't have a comparison group with this. We did structured interviews at baseline, 6 and 12 months. This is a 12-month intervention where the client meets monthly with their healthcare manager. And we did it with Latinos with serious mental illness in Washington Heights that had serious mental illness and are risk for cardiovascular disease. And if you go to any of these clinics, it's like 90% of the patients that are there will have this inclusionary criteria. And what we found, the data part of this, is that it's feasible for social workers, if they're well-trained and supervised, to deliver this intervention. 85% of our participants completed the intervention at 12 months, and over the course of a year, we saw great significant improvements in patient activation, meaning people were engaged in the care that they're receiving, they're advocating for themselves. We increased self-efficacy, particularly for talking to their doctors. And in Latino communities, it's super important. There's this aspect of deference to authority. If you ever treat a Latino patient, you can ask the Latino patient to do whatever you think, take all the pills that you want, and the Latino patient will always say, yeah, doctor, no te preocupe, whatever, and then go home and do whatever the hell they want, don't take the medication, and never tell us. But we actually shifted that. People were asking questions. They were being more open about the challenges that they have with this intervention. We increased the patient assessment of the chronic illness care from the healthcare manager, wonderful measure to examine fidelity of an intervention from the client's perspective. Is the care manager doing what they're supposed to be doing? And is the patient actually seeing that in their interactions with the healthcare manager? And then our primary outcome was actually to improve the receipt of preventive primary care, and we almost doubled it from 29% to 54% in a year. But the story doesn't end there. Data cannot be allowed to eclipse the human. We then asked people, why did you like this healthcare manager intervention? What did it bring to you? And people talked a lot about cultural aspects. This is a person who treated me with respect, with affection, with confianza and trust. When can we say that of a doctor in our healthcare system? Healthcare managers were well prepared. The things that most impressed me about the healthcare manager, they're well prepared. They're here, they know their materials. They provided individual attention, encouragement, and motivation. And then something that really caught my attention is this last quote. People develop deep personal connections with their healthcare manager. She treated me very well. She treated me like I was family. When has a doctor treated any of us like we were family? Very rare. She treated me with such humility, and thank God I had her for an entire year. So that was a really important aspect where we then changed the theory of our intervention. That is not only about the core elements that you see here, the assessment, the health education, all of that things are important, but at the end of the day, it's that humanity that we are creating between the healthcare manager and the person, and that it reflects back the cultural values that that person values and respects. Respeto, dignidad, confianza, professionalism. That's what really matters for these clients. And it's also a testament to our healthcare system where we're missing that aspect in navigating this complex system that we're in. So those are the lessons that I wanted to impart today in the work that we're doing. I know we're doing great on time. My Puerto Ricanness is doing good. Hopefully not too fast. But I want to end with a really important aspect, and also one of the real privileges in my career has been the importance of investing in people. We're at the Society for Social Work and Research, and the most important thing is investing in the people that are going to do this work, the next generation, the early career faculty, the doctoral students. That's where we need to put our efforts into this. We need to invest in people in all the ways, in their education, in their training, and their empowerment. Part of the pleasures of being in a sabbatical is I get to listen to a bunch of podcasts. I love podcasts. I go from Joe Rogan to Malcolm Gladwell, from Chente Hidrack to Lane. So every podcast you can think of, I listen to it. And there was this great quote, I think it was Matthew McConaughey, had this wonderful quote about life, that it's not really about the journey, it's not really about where we end up, it's actually about the people that go with us on that journey. And that caught my attention, that's so true. It is the people around us that make us who we are and make our science better. So I first want to highlight a really important program that I've been leading since 2017, the Brown School Training Program, Mental Health Services Research. For many of you that may not know, this was established by Enola Proctor in 1995. And we're celebrating today, this year, 30 years of continuous NIMH funding. Enola, stand up. Stand up, Enola. Yeah. It is an honor to lead this program and to continue that legacy. And we're almost, if Byron sends that email and writes a good response, we might get to 35. We're in the process of the renewal. But we're really proud of this program. I'm a product of that program. I'm here because of that program and what I learned from it. Over the 30 years, we have prepared 73 pre- and 23 postdoctoral fellows. The majority, 80%, go on to do research and faculty positions, and they're leaders in our field. We have an incredible track record of these individuals actually getting NIH funding, social workers getting NIH funding at all levels at it. And they are the scholars, they are the leaders of our field in many ways, particularly mental health services research. We have seen independent researchers in implementation science, mental health care disparity research, transition age use, treatment seeking, psychiatric epidemiology, and all other fields. And many of you are here, fellow alumni of this program, and it is due to your work that this program continues to this day. Your accomplishments is what makes our program continue to grow. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I'm going to end with some thank yous, because there's a lot of people here that I need to thank. And if I miss anyone, perdón, coño, but I'm happy to thank you afterward. First and foremost, my team, our team, Lauren Bochicho, who's looking for a job, and she's incredible. And she has an offer out there from a place that hasn't completed the deal. Please complete it. This is a great scientist and a leader in our field. We have Daniela Tuda, who's a doctoral student who will graduate in May, right? Where's Daniela? There you go. You're graduating in May. We're graduating in May. And then I had the experience, Daniel Adams, who's been a great partner in the work that we're doing in psychedelics. We had a great experience about a year and a half ago understanding this new field, and it's been a pleasure to see you grow as an early career faculty at MISU is amazing. Nancy Perez Flores, who's here, who I hadn't seen almost in 3 years or more. She graduated last year. She got an R36. And did a wonderful study on stigma in the Latino community. She also had a beautiful baby, Easy, and I'm so happy to see you here. Michael Park, who's at Rutgers, and a lot of our team members are in other universities. We are a big family. Puerto Ricans, we do whatever. We have family everywhere. But most importantly, I do want to acknowledge my partner in crime and my most valuable collaborator, Ana Stefancic. Dr. Ana Stefancic, I have it written here, Ana, no te preocupes. Ana, I learn from you every day. You are a clear-headed, steady, determined leader. You're an excellent scientist, a dedicated and passionate advocate to improving the lives of people with serious mental illness. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work that we're doing. I know we've gone through some ups and downs in the work that we do, but it's always fun. And I cherish the opportunity to continue to collaborate with you for the many years to come. And you always have a home at the Brown School, if you ever wanted to. So we'll keep working on it. I also have an opportunity to work with a bunch of collaborators from everywhere. Don Byron Powell has been my brother from another mother from Wisconsin. We are doing great work at the Center for Mental Health Service Research, and his work in implementation science is amazing. I was going to put the mustache, but I couldn't figure it out. But it's been a pleasure to work with you, Byron, and more to come. And then I've been working with some amazing people. Rebecca Lester and Ginger Nico and Tonya Edmonds are my partners in crime in the work that we're doing in psychedelics. We have a new center at Washington University to understand these new treatments, the promise of these new treatments, and to do it in a safe and effective manner. And my colleagues in Chile. I do some work in Chile. María Soledad Borrone y Rubén Alvarado are incredible people from the University of Chile and the University of O'Higgins. It's been wonderful to learn from you and to have that world of Chileans in our world is so exciting. And then I do want to highlight two up-and-coming Latinx faculty. Gabriela Nagy from the University of Milwaukee, the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, and Elio Rivera Segarra from Ponce Health Science University. These are incredible people. This is the next generation of scholars. Look out for them. They're taking over with great work. And they do work with our Latino community to improve the health and well-being of our community. And then I have to thank my mentors. I wouldn't be here without them. I've been so lucky and so privileged to work with Luis Saya, Genola Proctor, Roberto Luis Fernandez, our PI, Mary McKay, our former dean, Lisa Dixon with all her neurosis and energy and experience, John Landsberg, who continues to provide me advice every day, and Lawrence Palinkas, who it's why I do qualitative work, actually. My first qualitative study was with Larry, and Larry basically said, go do it, figure it out, and we'll figure it out together. And we still collaborate in many of the work. And lastly, I do want to end thanks to my family. My mom, who's watching, my big sister Anna, and my dad, who passed away several years ago. Your unwavering support, your unconditional love keeps me going every day. And we've gone through a lot, but we've been celebrating. My mom just celebrated her last tres pesetas, 75 years. She got a new hip, so she's dancing better, and she's doing wonderful. We need to find you a boyfriend, is what we're trying, but we'll figure it out. Or girlfriend. At 75, we'll take anyone. I know, Mom, sorry. I do want to thank my nenes, or not my nene, my manganzone, my kids, Leo Antonio and Vanessa. You're always my rock. I love you no matter what, and you're my constant support and inspiration every day. And lastly, to my wife, Christine, who's here, my beautiful wife, my love of my life. Your love, your companionship, your friendship is what supports me every day. It's what keeps me going. You're the only person in the world that can drive me insane, but also make me very happy. So I love you for that. And it's been an incredible journey, and I hope we have many more years to come. And then one last one, because my daughter's going to kill me if I don't do this one. Our new princess. Our new princess, we rescue this wonderful dog. We don't even know what she is yet. She's still growing. But Luna Carla Cabassa Kaufman, she has a proper Puerto Rican name, who's beautiful, as you can see here, but we've been beginning to find out that she looks like this, but she really, inside of her, has this. And we love her no matter what. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for this honor, and I welcome your questions. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. So, any questions?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for your talk and your presentation. Speaking of investing in people, you probably do not remember this, but you and I had about an hour-long Zoom meeting when I was a doc student at Pitt, which was 4 years ago, maybe.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, I'm done. I work, honey. I got a job. And so you are true to your testament of investing in people. You invested in the next generation. And so my question is about policy. My work is on mental health literacy, which is why me and you met, of Black youth. And so my big dream is to mandate mental health literacy education into public schools so that no child leaves 12th grade without knowledge about mental health and where to seek treatment. And so your results about the importance of connection and showing dignity to people and how that improves health outcomes, how do we what is your plan, or if you have plans about getting that to policymakers to really infuse and think about how to change how we educate medical professionals to make sure that that is the way that they are approaching this work and really kind of infuse that into how things are done from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I'm glad, and good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
No, it's a really important question. One good example of the work that we're doing actually is the new project that we're doing in Puerto Rico. Elio Rivera Segarra is actually using and infusing this anti-stigma approach, training medical students on how to have anti-stigma interactions with people with serious mental illness. And one way that I think has been very valuable is that he has embedded that in the curriculum of the medical school. So every doctoral medical student that gets trained will have to go through that process. And it's not only about just changing the attitude, it's actually practicing. They have standardized patients, and they practice to have that interaction. I'm not a policy person, I'll be really honest. I dabbled in policy for 3 years in New York State when I was at the Center for Excellence for Cultural Competence, and I quickly realized that I'm the wrong person to put in front of a policymaker. No. But I think our science, we can speak to the policymakers about what we do and how we do it. But also that change of health literacy, mental health literacy, actually might not come also from policy, but from other people. Where are young people getting their information? Where are they seeing mental health? Where are they seeing those conversations? And actually partnering with those. In the Latino community, we had, at some point, we were actually going to partner with Residente, with Calle 13, which is a huge artist in Puerto Rico who's very interested about mental health. And he was very interested in our photonovela, in depression photonovela around it. So thinking beyond sort of policymakers, but also other people that speak the language of our youth and can have a better direct contact. So I think there's other opportunities to do that and to embed it, and then to think about how to make this relatable to young people. It's another really important component, and partnering with young people around these issues are really, really important.
That was my dissertation work, so you should expect another email from me.
There we go. Happy to do so, just after my sabbatical. Good. Other questions? Oh, we see someone running. Hurry up. We're getting there.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm Dr. Daniel Burson. I'm at the University of Denver. My question for you is about the speed of this intervention research. And I really just would love your opinion, and your opinion after being trained by such great mentors and collaborating with such great partners. I guess I'll frame it like this, right? You showed us a clinical trial with a number of aspects that took 5 years and had no findings. And then you emphasized a 12-month pre-post study that you built a lot of knowledge on. Yep. And one of the conclusions I heard is that history was a factor in the null findings, right, in the 5-year study. So are we doing our science right, taking 5 years and then implementing programs and practices that might be historically not as important as they once were? Yeah. And so I'd just love to hear your reflection back to the beginning of this about our science as social workers and speed. Thank you.
Excellent question. No, I appreciate that question because I think that's at the heart multiple things, particularly how we fund our science, how we implement it, and how we study it. One of the things that I learned early on in my career is how we go about doing science. So in all these studies that you saw today, we didn't use our clinicians. So it's like we actually went to the community and did this study in the community and actually build the capacity in the community, where they, at the end, when the science ends, when everything goes out, they still have the capacity to continue to do some of this work. It might not be perfect, but they have something. The other components is in the work that we're doing, every time we do a grant, my job is actually how to bring that money out of the university. My dean's gonna hate me for this. So the university doesn't get paid, but the community gets paid and build an infrastructure. We can use our science to build infrastructure in the community. It's hard, there's a lot of problems and policies around that, but it's actually building that. The other component, I think, is these interventions that we don't, there's 17 years gap, and we can accelerate that by building interventions out in the community to seeing what is it that might work best here, and then develop the science. This idea of evidence-based practice, there's also practice-based evidence coming from the community to inform what we do. So I think it's a dialectic component here that has to do with this. And we need new ways of funding research that goes beyond 5 years. NIH is starting to do some of that in the disparities well, doing investments for 7 or 10 years in some study, and I think that's another approach to do this. But we need to think about it, exactly addressing that. And then the interventions, actually, we develop interventions with the implementation in mind of where they're gonna end up. It's another component. So it's a continuous challenge for our profession, but we tried to build that capacity. In the PGLB study, at the end of our study, we developed sustainability plans. So each site received a sustainability plan about how they will sustain the intervention or some aspect of the intervention once we left. And actually, most of those agencies, even with our null findings, they still are doing some of this work. In fact, they didn't care about null findings. They're like, this is working here. We've seen the changes. We're going to figure out how to bring peer specialists to deliver this care. There's a value for that, and actually to continue to fund peer specialists. So that, too, also is really important for that. Yeah. All right. Uh-oh. Here comes my brother from another mother.
Leo, I just want to thank you for bringing us so much hope. I was deeply moved. These past weeks have been tremendous, tumultuous for our nation and what's ahead. And you model in such a powerful way how to be a leader in science, but most important, how to be a leader from the heart. Yeah. It's so easy to get lost in the science and the innovation and lose sight of that. So you were so powerful in so many ways in this lecture, and first of all, I want to thank you for that.
Gracias, Rubén, gracias.
We really needed that today, so thank you.
It's what happens when you're in a month in Puerto Rico in that beach. It's just hopeful.
Absolutely.
It's just hopeful.
From Joe Rogan to others, so I can definitely see the psychedelics working. So
that's a whole other thing. But yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So I just want to go back to the retention, 18-month retention, 80%, 85% retention in a 12-month. I know you and your team were not thinking about age factors, impact factors, and that stuff when you were in the midst of what do we need to do to get there. I think in the coming years, it's going to be so easy to lose track of the essentials. Yeah. Can you highlight again what were the essentials that throughout the implementation on those studies, when you were facing so many challenges, said, we need to stick to these essentials so we achieved this, because you achieved it in a very beautiful way. I think it's very important for us to keep adhering to those.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you so much, Ruben. And your work is also very inspiring for this. And you're also a scientist that comes from the heart in the work that we do. You're a Mexican brother from Chihuahua. It's okay, you're from Chihuahua, but we love you anyway. No empecemos. But no, I think part of this is a testament to our team. To being there on the ground, to doing a study where we're bringing resources. And when I mean resources, literally employment into agencies. We're embedding everything that we do in these agencies. We're working from day one on how to address that and being very careful about how to introduce science into this agency without disrupting their work. And then it also speaks to the need in the community. 80% of the people stay with us because they really saw that this intervention did something for them and the people that we have. Every study that we do, and I take this from my grandfather, it's like we are basically visitors in this agency. So we need to show lots of respect, lots of courage, and honor their time. So the intervention work by using peer specialists was also super important. They have someone that looks like them, that feels like them, that has struggled like them, and that's the person they're connecting to. And then our research assistants who are from the community train them really well to be very respectful of the work that they're doing. And Anna Stefan, she did an incredible job on doing that over the course of these 4 months. That project, we lost one of our peer specialists to an overdose. And that, I think, also changed the way we did our work. It's like, these are real people. This can happen. How do we come together and honor the memory of that peer specialist in the work that we do? So I think it's all of those pieces. And also, we pay well. That's the other thing. We have these battles with IRBs. If we're going to bring someone, and not for intervention, we pay well for our assessments to make sure that they're getting that and try to give them cash as best as we can. Actually, in that trial, we gave them cash to all the things. It was a little scary to be carrying that amount of cash in Philadelphia and New York City, but providing that was so super important. To not be paternalistic and saying you have to get this. No, you come and do our assessment. Here's the $50 in cash, and it's you use it for whatever you want. I think that also helped. All right, I think we have one. Oh, there's one more question or no?
No more.
One more question, yeah.
Do you want to?
We'll go there.
It's up to you. Okay, sorry. Okay. So, I thank you so much for this, really heartfelt and amazing presentation. It's really strange that my face is up there. But I did have a question as someone who does focus on these communities, but specifically looking at the context of immigration. And so obviously with the upcoming administration and sort of the stripping of benefits and, climate of fear, talk about mass deportations, all of this that I'm sure is impacting the communities you work with and also intersects with mental health. I'm curious how your research is going to look like moving forward and sort of what are your thoughts, ideas, anything that you have.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough years ahead. And actually, you're sitting next to the person who's actually done incredible work in this in Michigan. When you were in Michigan, Ruben, you had to deal with this in a lot of your work. First of all, making sure that we're not putting any of our participants, students, or anyone in danger. Hopefully, universities will help us with this. In NIH, there's confidentiality issues. Nobody can subpoena our records. Hasn't been challenged in the courts. We'll see. And then doing studies in places where people trust. And we will have to go out more into a community and show our faces and be there on the ground, creating that trust and safe spaces, and finding places where we're not putting people at risk. I'm deeply concerned about this. And I'm deeply concerned. I'm a Puerto Rican. I'm a U.S. citizen. I shouldn't be concerned about this, but I am. In fact, starting since we've been traveling lately, I've been traveling with a passport everywhere I go in the United States because I don't know what will happen. But I think we need to continue. I hope universities use the resources to provide that protection as well. But it's challenges ahead. There's a lot of lessons that I've learned from our colleagues in Chile who've gone through a dictatorship and what it is to live under a dictatorship, do research on that dictatorship, where people disappear, and all these struggles that they have. And it's listening to those lessons as well, because dark times are ahead. But I think there's still hope and the work, and we need to continue to do our work, regardless of what's going to happen. So, yeah. Thank you. All right.
I have one more question. Is it okay for one more question?
I think we're done, but I'm happy to talk to you afterward. Yes, no problem. Stay right there. Oh, are we taking photos?
So just as the last component of this, we have a plaque to present to Leo that says, Society for Social Work and Research in the Brown School of Social Work at Washington University for your contributions that advance the use of scientific evidence in social work practice.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for taking photos.
Yeah, he's right here. So we'll go over and then
Hey, guapo.
thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, you need to say.
No, I was just gonna. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much. Oh, this is their computer, right?
There's a
It's not
computer
your-
one.
Okay.
I'm just going to take this off.